Good morning and welcome to the History and Philosophy of Science in 6 Easy Steps. This is the 2015 edition and I am Dr. Green. I'll be your instructor this year. One of the things you'll notice as soon as you take a look at this course on the Moodle site is that we're actually moving from Moodle to Google Classroom this year. You can still use Moodle if you want just at first to get a feeling for what the course is going to be like, but do not use it to complete assignments because the assignments are going to be changed up a little bit this year. The rubrics are different and some other things are going to be changing. So you need to use the Google Classroom version of the course, and for that just log into your school Gmail account and go to classroom.google.com and you can find that there. And be sure to take a look at the video that I put up, the Google Classroom tutorial, and the other tutorials including the Twitter tutorial, making your graph on Google for the first assignment and so on. All those resources are going to be at Google Classroom. Okay, but first I'd like to give you just an overview of what this course is all about. All right, now in one sense, this course is largely going to be about one particular book, and that's something that's changing a little bit this year. This year, because we're increasing this to half a science credit, we're adding some work here, and so what we're going to do this year is we're going to actually read pretty much this whole book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kuhn. And this is kind of the centerpiece of the course because not only is Thomas Kuhn probably the most influential philosopher of science ever, but in outlining his very interesting view of science, I think you'll find his views pretty interesting. He's the originator of the concept of the paradigm shift. And in doing that, in outlining that, what he does is he gives you a really great kind of overview of the key events in the history of science, the key revolutions that have taken place. And he has a really very knowledgeable perspective and insightful perspective on those. So that's why we've kind of made this as the centerpiece of the course, and I think you would be well advised to start reading that right away. I've provided on Google Classroom, I've got a little video to get you started reading that. Sometimes the reading is not that easy in the book. He was a scientist and a philosopher, and he's writing to that audience. So, but you can look at that, and the other thing I've provided is an outline of the book. So I went through and read it again, and I summarized the chapters so that might help you to get a feeling for what he's talking about and help you interpret it as you're reading it. Okay, but get a start with that. Week 2 is when we're really going to hit that book hard, and you're going to be writing about it. You're going to be watching a play about Lavoisier, and that's related to the book, and writing about that as well in week 2. But you want to get started on that right away. So how about a quick overview of what we're going to be doing in this course? It's divided into 6 weeks or 6 units, and it's really, I think, kind of a unique approach to the question of the history and philosophy of science, because it really does mix the two together. The first week we really focus on the history. You're going to be making a graph of the number of discoveries over time, and then you're going to be arguing for what you think are the 3 most important scientific discoveries. In week 2 is where we really get into the philosophy and look at Thomas Kuhn and look at his view of the paradigm shift and focus in on Lavoisier. Week 3, we're going to look at another very influential philosopher of science, and that's Karl Popper, and his view of what science is and how it's different from non-science, or what he calls pseudoscience. In week 3, we're going to look at the influence of society on science, and in particular, we're going to look at why the question of why the West, why did basically Europe, did most of the scientific revolution take place in Europe, and what are the influences on that? So we're going to be looking at something called the European miracle, and we're going to focus in on that in week 4. In week 5, we're going to look at the influence of science on society. We're going to be focusing in on a couple of aspects of that. In particular, we're going to look at the relationship between science and technology in the 21st century, and, well, in general, what comes first, science or technology, and what's the difference between science or technology. And then we're going to be listening to an abridged version of Carl Sagan's book, The Demon-Haunted World, and we're going to look at the influence and the impact of science and the scientific worldview on society in general. Okay, that's going to be the 5th week, and then the 6th week we're going to focus in on something called the singularity. The singularity is a view of the history and future of science that basically says that, well, I'm not going to tell you what it says. We're going to focus in on that week 6, and we're going to wrap that up with a movie and some readings from one of the singularity viewpoint's most famous proponents, Ray Kurzweil. So we're going to be looking at his work in that last week. So that's just a brief overview. Now let's look at how the course works. So there's a basic workflow to the course, and I encourage you to look at the course outline, which is provided on in the About section on Google Classroom. It says History and Philosophy of Science 6 Workflow. It's down a couple of pages. And we always start by, well, you're always going to start by watching my intro video, kind of like this one. We're going to have one of these every week. And what I'll be doing in future weeks is I'll be starting with a review and a recap of the previous week, some feedback on your projects, your essays, the Twitter chat. You're either going then to do some more readings, whether they be in a book, an article that I've provided, or you might be watching a movie or a play. Then you're going to be doing a project. Now, usually this is going to be in the form of a 5-paragraph essay or reflection that you're going to write about it in response to a question or a prompt. But it could be something else. One of the assignments will be doing an infographic on the topic. So it might not always be just an essay, but that is what it usually will be. Then you're going to assess yourself using the rubric that I've provided, and make sure you look at the Google Classroom tutorial. It tells you how all that works. So you're going to self-assess. Then you are going to, or we're all going to chat about it on Twitter, and make sure you look at the Twitter tutorial that I provided to see how that's going to work. The Twitter chat will take place all week long, so I will start off the week by posting 2 questions, or at some point during the week I'll post the second question. I'll post the first question early in the week and then the second question later. And what I want you to do is respond to my question with a tweet, and then reply to at least one of your classmates with a tweet, something that was interesting about their post. For example, if let's say they shared their essay on what the most important discoveries were, or they shared their opinion on who was the most important scientist, you might reply to that what you think about that, whether you agree, disagree, and why. So that'll be the Twitter chat. And then finally, of course, I'm going to score you, give you some feedback. And the cool thing is you can revise as many times as you want to get the score that you want. So if you're going for perfection, go for it. That's what this course is all about. There are no zeros. This is all about you mastering the material and nothing else. Okay. Generally, the assignments will always be due on Friday at 11:59, and a portion of your grade is going to consist of whether those assignments were turned in on time or not. You can look at the course outline for the full description of how the grading is going to work. So this is going to be a fairly intensive course. I think you can expect to spend up to 60 hours total on this. So a couple hours a day in general you should set aside for this course, for doing the readings and the writing and stuff like that. There will be quizzes. They're not a large portion of your grade, but I just want to have another way of assessing your knowledge of the readings and whether you're keeping up with them and so on. Those will also be due on Friday, and those will be posted on Google Classroom as well. Keeping in touch with me, you can use Google Classroom to message me through email. You can get to me through my Google email that's listed on the course outline and also on Moodle, actually. And of course, you can always tweet at me at 7wgreen7. That is a great way to get in touch with me very quickly. And you can contact me by my EOSmith email address, which is also listed at EOSmith on the directory. Okay, I think this is going to be a great summer. It's going to be a challenging course, but you are going to come out of this with a very different perspective, I think, on what science is and how it works. And I think you'll be very surprised in how it affects your ability to work as a scientist in your science courses, because you're really going to understand how the whole thing works and what it's all about. So keep in touch. and let me know if you have any questions. I'm always available. Twitter is always a great way to ask me questions. In fact, if you're reading through Kuhn and you're like, wow, what does this paragraph mean? Hey, tweet it out to me. Give me the page number, and I'll help you out with it. So I want to be here for you to help you as much as I can. So please take advantage of that. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you all better and learning with you.